Hey, we have such a good intro. Man, do we ever. It's Rumor and Innuendo. I'm Dominic D'Angelo of adfreeshows.com, SEScoops.com, and OneTrueSportTV.com. But I'm here, as usual, with Robert Karpelish, WE Creative _ish. TGIF, Robert, we got some good stuff to talk about. Little bit, not a whole lot, but some good stuff nonetheless.
Happy Friday. Do you get a discount on the shirts because they don't have the sleeves?
Oh, no. I cut the sleeves, Robert, sometimes. This used to have sleeves, but I didn't wear the shirt enough. So I was like, if I cut them off and use it as a workout shirt, I'll wear it more.
Look, we know that cutting is a cry for help. And that's where we're at right now. But where we're at right now is a ton of wrestling news. But first and foremost, I would be remiss if I didn't tell Mr. Dominic D'Angelo to break a leg as his play starts this evening.
That's right. If you guys are in the Pittsburgh area, go
Run.
to the Genesis.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Go to the Genesis Theater at Duquesne University. You can check out Sherlock Holmes, The Final Adventure. I am the king of Bohemia. You will see I'm basically the comedic relief in the show. So
very almost hard to believe.
Can you believe it? Yeah, so there it is. So if you're in the area, or hit me up on DMs and I can send you a link too. Either way, should be fun. Thank you, Robert. I love doing plays and stuff, so this will be a fun little excursion. But either way, I tie it into pro wrestling. It's very pro wrestling theater is, and both aspects of it. Hey, we had a little bit of theater last night, Robert. When it came to the Republican National Convention, man, a lot of WWE Hall of Famers there. We had Kid Rock, we had Donald Trump, Lyndon McMahon, Kane, and yes, Hulk Hogan cut a promo. We try to remain non-political on this. If you want to hear some a little bit more politics stuff, you got to go to work and stiff. But Robert, I do want to get your thoughts from just the promo aspect, just the presentation of it all. What did you think of Hulk Hogan's speech?
Holding a pencil to remind myself to keep myself in check.
There we go.
So yes, on the Working Stiff Patreon that'll come out this weekend, myself and Scott Chapman are going to talk in greater detail about Hogan's Republican National Convention appearance. For now, this was real life. That's Hulk Hogan stood on stage at the Republican National Convention, and he talked about Andre the Giant,
yes,
Randy Savage, and the Ultimate Warrior.
He did.
Dude, I got nothing. Like, there is a degree of bizarre to all. Like, here's the best way I can put this. You're wearing a Batman bandana right now.
Right, yes. Adam West style.
This would be like if at the Democratic National Convention, they have George Clooney, who we know has been very politically active, come out dressed as Batman and delivers a speech as Batman
with the nipples
about what Joe Biden is going to do as president. My favorite part of this, again, we can kind of guess where I'm leaning on this, but regardless, my favorite part of the entire speech, and it was Mike Lawrence's favorite part because he beat me to texting it, was Hogan starts doing the Hulk Hogan character.
Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, brothers, I'm Terry Bollea. And then he just keeps doing Hulk Hogan.
It was still the same, yeah.
Like, I thought he was going to stop and then be like, as a business owner, since he does own Hogan Beach, as a citizen, as a father, as an incredibly wealthy man who has combated insane lawsuits, here are the reasons why I think Trump would be a great president. Please don't edit that snippet of me saying Trump would be a great president. We don't need that existing in the ether. But he just turns into full on Hogan promo style the entire time. It's nonsensical. It's weird. And as a wrestling fan, it's kind of amazing because we all know, all of you tuning in here to Rumor and Innuendo, all you listening wherever you're listening from, we all know Hogan's full of crap. Like, we know it. This is the guy. Remember, he slammed Andre the Giant, who weighed 3,000 pounds and was hours away from death. And then he does these interviews where he's like, well, brother, I got to be honest, man. Dude, I didn't think that Andre was going to even let me get him up. It's insane. Or the story about like being at a show and meeting a kid like hours before he died, and he's like the stench of death. Hogan's always disingenuine when he's the Hulkster. That's why the NWO angle worked so well. It was peeling back the curtain and being like, no, guys, that was all an act. That was all crap. Say your prayers, take your vitamins. No, I'm all about the money. I'm all about the fame. I'm all about the success. And I'm masking it under this very thin character of Hollywood Hulk Hogan. So when he goes out there and does this, you're just like, we know what this is. Why I'm surprised about this even existing is Hogan even said in there he's always been fairly apolitical.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the wrestlers at a high level remain apolitical. So no matter which way the wind blows, they kind of have plausible deniability. We talked about The Rock being at the Republican National Convention years ago, and he wasn't there talking about you got to vote for George W. Bush. He was there talking about you got to go out there and vote no matter who you are, no matter what side you're on. And it helps keep the integrity of your product to some degree. Because once someone really takes a strong stance one way or the other, it's very hard to see them otherwise, whether they're an extreme liberal, an extreme conservative. You know, you say the name Rob Reiner, people immediately conjure up their opinion on him.
Right.
And when you mentioned Kid Rock, it's like, well, now we know where Kid Rock stands for his political ideology. And when you're watching wrestling, you want it to be a blank slate.
Mm-hmm.
I, as a wrestling fan, do not know how John Cena votes. I don't necessarily care how John Cena votes. I could pretty well guess how JBL votes, but that was also his gimmick. By the way, shout out to Jojo.
Yeah, look at this. This is a good one.
Robert, you suck. Such a Hogan hater. Conrad, get rid of this clown. Thank you. Huge, by the way, massive Hogan fan from the beginning. That's what got me into wrestling. I watched the Hogan cartoon, had the action figure before I even knew what wrestling was. That's what pulled me in. The hate, if there's any quote hate, comes from the fact that this was a goofy ass promo, but that worked in that environment. Like the way he's like, we're gonna go after the drug dealers, brother. We're gonna drop a leg on them. Okay, neat. I know there was a follow-up question that you had in the rundown that I'm curious to get to.
Yes, let me say too, to what you were saying, like it was effective for what the environment was and everything like that. Because I mean, Trump mentioned him later on. Hogan got like the biggest pop out of anybody like, later on after when he mentioned it. So I mean, it was very effective, and that's what people were talking about after, you know, the whole thing was said and done. You know, it was the big kind of one of the big headlines of the whole thing. So, yes, all Jake does make a note. And I will say too, Robert, I do think JBL does not necessarily lean that certain way. He says surprisingly liberal is JBL. So
given the time frame of when I worked with Mr. Layfield, his opinions on certain things made me believe in our conversation that he shifted a certain way. But hey, people are allowed to move back and forth all the time on it. There's nothing wrong with that. I remember when I was there, when you walked into Kevin Dunn's office, there was a massive Bush Cheney poster in there.
Wow.
But that was never permeating to the overall product.
Right. And you know, you make a great point too, is like remaining neutrals, like look at Michael Jordan. It's always like Republicans buy sneakers too. That's the known catchphrase for everything.
Yeah, of course.
You know, that's like, that's the way to kind of handle it. And the thing with wrestling, you don't talk politics, you don't talk religion. That's always kind of been the thing. And that's a lot with entertainment in general. I mean,
well, like, Hogan did wear the cross that Andre ripped off. Tore it right off of him, brother.
But
to your point, like, Hogan knows what to do because wrestling is very much theater. It is very much captivating your audience and getting a response from them. And he cut a babyface promo. He talked about the Trumpites. He ripped off the shirt. He put over Trump while also putting himself over, so we knew it was still Hogan. And there's a very small percentage of you that absolutely thought at some point in time Hogan was going to try to announce himself for his candidacy.
I was maybe fully expecting him to give the big boot to JD Vance and then drop the big leg on him. And then, wow, he's the new, he's already the new candidate running mate.
Dude, but on the other hand, brilliant idea by the Republican Party to use Hogan.
Yeah.
Visible political figure, visible pop culture icon. It got a lot of traction, a lot of press in the mainstream of people talking about it. And they overall talked about it favorably as this made for a wild spectacle. As Andrew Hermes says here, eyeballs.
Yep.
Definitely. But if the person that introduced him would have been not a major professional wrestling celebrity, but instead Scott Baio, good friend of Eric Bischoff, Scott Baio, I doubt we'd be talking about it in the same vein right now.
100%.
Now, if it was John Voight, I would have tuned in for that to match the pencil mark.
That's what I was going to say.
I got the pencil in my head. It's what made me think of John Voight. I will never pass up a chance for a Simpsons reference or a Seinfeld reference. My God. But yeah, that was Hulk Hogan and Terry Bollea at the Republican National Convention. You did mention Linda was there, and Kid Rock was there, and Mayor Kane was there.
Indirectly, Undertaker was there. American Badass played. I did want to ask you, Robert. Yeah, part of the other notes was, how do you think this affects Hogan, and does it affect WWE?
I think now if he goes on WWE programming, people now kind of will remember this. But Hogan did already come with a lot of baggage. It's hard to overlook every time Hogan has been on TV since the sex tape, since the racially insensitive comments that were put out there. You can't look at Hogan the same way. And that's really unfortunate. And we've talked about this before, of the character and the actor. You can't look at the performer and not separate him from the individual who's portraying him. And a lot of these wrestlers now, because there's so much in the spotlight, are so cognizant of it. And it's why Dark Side of the Ring has thrived, because not a lot of people really knew everything that was going on behind the scenes back in the 70s or the 80s or even the 90s. Now, when Cody Rhodes leaves his house, he is Cody Rhodes. There are cameras everywhere. People are watching literally everything he does. There was a snippet from the Chris Van Vliet interview that he did. And he made this point where if you have a minute and a half interaction with Cody Rhodes, that will color how you view Cody for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Funny note to that. I was in the Tampa airport traveling for business, and I looked over, and 2 seats away from me was Frankie Kazarian.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, we have a lot of mutual friends in common. Obviously, having worked in the business, I'm just going to say a quick hi. He immediately assumed that I was like a fan trying to get an autograph from him and bolted. And I'm like, cool. So now whenever I think of Frankie Kazarian, that's all I think of, when I wanted to be like, dude, I worked your when you were on Velocity.
Yeah.
And we had you out there. But, that's what I think of with him. So a lot of these people now are very careful about their image. WWE is still politically agnostic.
Yep.
When they had I will never forget, it was the 2008 election, and they had Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and John McCain all cut promos.
They did, yeah.
And the unfortunate Hillrod promo is one of the most I think that may be ultimately why she lost in 2016. People still remember that moment.
It's that lingered.
It's such a creepy degree of pandering. George W. Bush used to cut the greatest promos. Like, he would do the tribute to the troops stuff, and he got it. And there's a story that Bruce said about trying to get George Sr. on WWE TV, and Jimmy Carter grew up as a wrestling fan.
Oh, wow.
I think Bill Clinton would have done a fantastic job cutting a wrestling promo. Fake Bill Clinton was there, but real Clinton would have been a home run. And Biden, maybe not. Seems like a lovely, fiery guy. might not be the right vibe. Because
Corn
it does give off the vibe as when Eric Bischoff was dressed as the Reverend.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It does. Yeah. It's very weird. Like, yeah, it's just it'll be interesting to see if that does at all. I'm kind of with you though. I don't think it's gonna necessarily cause too much waves when it gets to the WWE aspect.
Well, Hogan already causes problems when he shows up. It's why when they used him, it was like they dressed him as a pirate.
Oh my god.
It's very tough to put Hogan out there. WrestleMania 40, there was no Hogan representation.
Mm.
It was the big anniversary show. So it's a little surprising, but there's always going to be an asterisk with Hogan, in the same way there's always an asterisk with Warrior.
Yeah.
We know the performer, but we know what that person was, and the things that he would say. So even when they do the Warrior Award, you try not to roll your eyes too hard when you think about all the incredibly hateful and insensitive and homophobic comments that Warrior made. And when they celebrate the legacy of Ryback, all you'll think of is him eating those chicken sandwiches in a car.
True. Man, that's a visual I didn't want to think about right now. You put a lot of weird visuals in my head so far on this episode.
Well, guys, no matter how weird the visual is in your brain, the one thing that's going to counteract that is Blue Chew. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. If you want to be as hard as the summer day is long, then get yourself a Blue Chew and bring the summer heat. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in chewable form. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped directly to your door. The best part, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. We're about to preview the Blue brand, but you want to take the Blue Chew to start your weekend off right, because Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com, and we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code RUMOR. At checkout, just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code RUMOR, to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this episode. Rumor and Innuendo.
Thank you, Blue Chew. Yeah.
See, it would have been better, by the way, if Jojo Perry, instead of saying Conrad, get rid of this clown, said Conrad, get rid of this dick, because that would have been my segue to the Blue Chew ad. Yeah. But instead, here's where we are. But we are going to talk SmackDown right now. Big show tonight, I say, in theory, having not read the preview.
Yeah, well, there's not much to read about the preview, but it could speak to what we talked about. I believe it was with Raw and how bare bones their preview was. Ended up being a big show, or SmackDown. Maybe it was SmackDown last week. Either way, it's a very small promotion for what they have going on here. Andrade versus Carmelo Hayes. Logan Paul will return to address LA Knight's challenge, so we'll probably get that official tonight, their match at SummerSlam. And, hey, Cody Rhodes will appear. That's all we got, Robert. But what else do you kind of expect that they will paint around this canvas, this minimal canvas that they're using right now?
So I don't know what more they really need for SmackDown, because we knew that they set up the Carmelo Hayes Andrade match last week, and this is coming off of Money in the Bank. And the idea here is we're going to try to spotlight the athleticism of Andrade in the hope that this gets him over with the crowd.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of how this is tailored and designed. Him and Carmelo Hayes should be a spectacular athletic match. I think people are going to go nuts for it. And there's a little bit of story behind it. So I think that's a nice little added something. The hope is you watch this and you go, what a star-making performance by Andrade, because the promos are not going to get you there. And it's very tough to come up with a lot of storylines for him beyond right now making him a must-see attraction. Cody being there to talk about what happened last week. We saw Randy Orton get taken out. So now the idea is if you align yourself with Cody, you're potentially going to be attacked by the bloodline. I was encouraged to see. It looks like Kevin Owens' mom is doing better, which is fantastic news. I have no idea if he's actually going to be at the show or not, but that's really encouraging to see. And then Logan Paul to set up his match with LA Knight. You know, you've got SmackDown. You got SummerSlam a couple weeks away. Got to firm up this match because it's absolutely going to happen. But a good Logan Paul promo with LA Knight for 7 to 10 minutes, a 2-segment Carmelo Hayes Andrade match, a Cody promo probably ending with the bloodline surrounding him, and maybe he gets surprise allies. Maybe they lay a finger on him. We don't know. Something probably involving the Bailey, Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, Nia Jax mix. And you got a pretty solid 2-hour episode of SmackDown. The nice thing for them is they don't need to announce a lot. They don't need to tease a lot because you know you're still going to get a very, very good show. And they know that this show needs to truly deliver because next week's show is up against the Olympic opening ceremony.
That's a great point. Yeah. That's a
so you got to get those stories in now to ensure that people tune in for SummerSlam.
And I think Cody, just for this leading into SmackDown, he's a man on his own right now because Randy Orton's been taken out. We have not gotten any confirmation that Kevin Owens is on his own or that Kevin Owens will be there. So this kind of sets Cody up as that top babyface against all odds, so to speak, Phil Collins reference, where it's like he's got these massive heels that he's got to worry about. So I think it's a good chance for WWE to kind of further and elevate him as your champion, as that top babyface guy, and get that ball continue to roll and keep that momentum going as you lead into SummerSlam with him going up against Solo Sikoa and the Bloodline.
I think the other interesting thing, we know AJ competed in Japan.
Yes.
He may be primed for a return at some point soon. Absolutely. So that could happen as early as tonight. We don't know. Or maybe he's taking some time off to enjoy with his family.
That could be it too. Real quick, before we move to the next topic here, which involves Cody Rhodes, would you get a mouthpiece for Andrade? And who would you try to recruit or get involved with him if that's the case?
I think babyface mouthpieces are tough. You want to hear from the guy. You want to hear their full-throated whatever. As we get more comfortable with what they did with Nakamura and now what they're trying to do with Andrade with subtitles, I think that can help. I think if he continues to deliver in the ring, that will silence a lot of those issues. I'll be curious when Charlotte's back, what their interaction is going to be on camera, because that you could pair them together as the top couple on SmackDown, which makes me wish that Bianca and Montez Ford were more established as a duo on TV to build that power struggle a little bit. But we'll see. I think Andrade is insanely talented in the ring. WWE has always sort of had some trouble with a foreign talent that doesn't speak English with getting them over entirely with that crowd. So the path that they've taken with some folks, like marrying Dragon Lee to Rey Mysterio, immediately elevated Dragon Lee.
Right.
Andrade, if he just keeps delivering great matches, people will be excited to see him with great matches, but it will have a ceiling. And it's a shame because Andrade is definitely a talent that, if they figure out that other piece, can be a competitor for the world title.
Right. And yeah, he's got a great look, great wrestler. It will be interesting to see how they kind of lay it out for him, because we saw him be effective with Selena, but they were heels, to your point. So
and Selena was great as his heel mouthpiece.
Absolutely, she was.
That doesn't sound appropriate.
But it didn't feel appropriate with Andrade in AEW, and neither Cody Rhodes. He was talking about leaving AEW. It did feel appropriate for him, but you mentioned the interview he had with Chris Van Vliet earlier on, and he had a pretty interesting quote when it came to that leaving AEW. He says, "I also knew I was leaving. I knew it was a season. I knew it wasn't going to last, and there's something greater for me out there. And I know that might sound negative to people, but it's not. The WWE title is the biggest prize in the wrestling game. You put on boots, that's the one. I want to go get it. I have nothing but respect for my time there. I've got to sharpen my skills. Like Hulkamania and AEW before it came to WWE, it's the same. The energy was there. The renaissance was happening. It wasn't just company based, but it was all there. And I just have a love for it because I got to sharpen my skills. By the time got to the WrestleMania and WWE, I felt like, okay, I've come back, a complete package. I'm in command of. This is how the music goes. I'm in command of the American Nightmare is. And I can know that and understand that it's better than a writer or a producer. And thankfully, we have all those things. But yeah, nothing but love. Pretty great quote. And Cody knows how to handle himself in this thing. But yeah, I mean, do you think that was always his goal? I'm sure it was. It kind of felt like that. But I'm sure he kind of had that aspect like, I could maybe never go back to WWE when he entered AEW too.
No, I feel like Cody always needed to go back and prove that he could climb that mountain there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different when you build your own playhouse and you say like, all right, this is my realm and I'm the champion. I think that he felt in his mind there was something unfinished. He knew in his soul he is a main event guy in WWE. He's the guy who can carry that company, can carry the ball, make it happen. And it's very tough to shake that. And as much as AEW initially was sort of this unified vision with Cody, the Bucks, Kenny, Hangman, it seems to have split, and it's continuing to split into a series of different kind of mini shows within a larger 2-hour environment. And when you're not seeing your vision necessarily be enacted, you can get a little frustrated and say, look, here's what I can do here, but there's a ceiling. I'm going to go and really try to see if I can make a break in still kind of the big leagues in a lot of ways, which is WWE. It's always been the allure that they've had, that there's talent that they just want that one WrestleMania moment. We saw Sting got his one WrestleMania moment. Like, it does mean something. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's a small part of Kenny Omega that wouldn't want a singular WrestleMania moment. I would not be surprised if Chris Jericho doesn't get one final WrestleMania moment, or Bryan Danielson. So Cody is very diplomatic in how he phrases these things. There's clearly still a love and an admiration for what happened in AEW. And like we said before, the cameras are always on him. So he's always very cognizant of what he's doing. The cameras are always on Dominic D'Angelo because Dominic D'Angelo hosts about 75 podcasts.
It's quite a bit. Yes, One of a Kind with RVD. We're scheduled to go live today at 3 p.m. On RVD YouTube channel, as well as OneTrueSportTV.com. You can check us out live, interact with Rob, and ask him a question. We'll have some fun conversation. It'll be a short one because I got play. I got the show tonight, so it'll be a short one, but it'll be a fun one. So be sure to tune into that. Also, Straight Talk with Boss, Magnum TA, Greg Gagne. We got I got my brother on site at Waterloo for the Hall of Fame induction of Arn Anderson, as well as Tony Schiavone. Several other great names are going to be there as well. So be sure to keep your eyes peeled on OneTrueSportTV.com. And more, Greg Gagne's there too. He's getting inducted. So congrats to all of them. Marcus will do some interviews and stuff there. So be on the lookout for that. Full Horseman Network.com, OneTrueSportTV.com. Robert,
yes.
Talk Working Stiff. It's a big one. It's a new one in more ways than one. So talk about that a little bit.
It's a new one. Myself and Scott Chaplin are both on this week, talking all things AEW, breaking down the MJF Will Ospreay match, talking a little bit about the overall landscape of the wrestling scene right now, and just a grand old time. And lastly, to plug, if you haven't caught this week's episode of WTF with Mark Maron, Working Stiff host Dan St. Germain is the guest. And there's something super surreal about hearing Mark Maron plug the Working Stiff podcast. That was a Marquette moment for me. What's a Marquette moment for me? Every Monday through Friday is being able to be here with you guys live on a plethora of social media platforms, including the WWE Creative_ish X account, the SC Scoops X account, and on YouTube, the Rumor and Innuendo, Working Stiff, and ad-free shows, YouTube pages. So on behalf of the thespian himself, Dominic D'Angelo, I'm Robert Karpolis. Best of luck in your future endeavors.
Holmes. I'm looking for Sherlock Holmes.